Thank you, Chairman Barr, Ranking Member. Thank you for hosting this hearing, and I want to thank our witnesses for joining us today, too. As you know, for too long, our federal laws have not evolved to keep up with the issue of data privacy. As a result, we have seen states take action because we have failed to lead at the federal level. In California, we have implemented legislation such as the California Financial Information Privacy Act and the California Consumer Privacy Act. While the intent of these bills has been good, the unfortunate result is that the financial institutions have dual compliance obligations at the state and federal levels. That, coupled with patchwork state laws, have made it both costly and very confusing for institutions as they have to comply in the jurisdictions in which they operate. So I want to ask my first question to you, Mr. Talbot. Can you explain how in states like California, which I'm sure you're very familiar with the conflicting state privacy laws have created damaging dual compliance?
I'm sorry, I missed your last part.
Yeah, the damaging, how these conflicting state privacy laws have created damaging dual compliance.
Sure. Thank you for the question, and thank you for your leadership with the Financial Literacy and Wealth Creation Caucus, you as well as Ms. Beatty. So the challenge is in terms of the cost of the compliance, the complexity, because financial services institutions are not exempt in California at the entity level, only at the data level. Any data that they use that's not GLB compliant has to be mapped out and evaluated in terms to make sure they're compliant with the two California laws that you mentioned. So that is costly, that is time consuming.
Yeah.
Additionally,
Can you talk about the regulatory costs? What are the companies looking at when they have to develop these processes to meet those divergent state privacy laws?
Sure, they have to sign personnel, they have to sign lawyers, they have to hire regulatory counsel, outside counsel usually hired. There's compliance experts that are brought in. So the whole team that has been developing the system for the financial institution at the federal level also has to spend time, if not create a separate team, focused on California. Mm-hmm. In addition, California changes their law frequently, and currently there's a current proposal to amend it now. All of those changes have to be discussed and analyzed and executed, and that takes time and resources.
Sure. Another issue I hear a lot about is the question of opt-out versus opt-in as it relates to data privacy. So, Ms. Kim, I want to ask you, in Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, can you explain to us why there was an intentional decision to offer consumers the ability to opt out rather than opt in?
Yes, so Gramm-Leach-Bliley provides a requirement that financial institutions have to clearly disclose to consumers exactly what happens with their data and where they have choices about that data. And they do that at the start of the relationship. And if you're going to share data that's subject to an opt-out, you have to tell the consumer every year, hey, I'm sharing your data, you can change your mind about it. Mm-hmm. And the reason it did that was because there are a number of things the companies do to share data that consumers sort of expect. So I might not want to opt out of my bank sharing my data for certain purposes, but I might want to opt out, say, for a car dealer using it. And so you have those choice on an entity-by-entity level to do that. It also, the privacy notices, I know people pick on them, but they are the subject of a lot of research and development to make sure that consumers can clearly understand in plain language exactly what's happening with their data and what choices they have.
Sure. I think consumers are rightfully concerned that they have limited understanding about how their financial data is being utilized. And that's why I think it's important that we also address the annual privacy notice that consumers receive. So, Ms. Kim, can you talk about the annual privacy notice that consumer receives and what kind of research does the agency or agencies conduct to make notices more consumer-friendly?
Yeah, so the FTC and the bank regulators worked on the current form of the privacy notice. And I think one of the most recent innovations is the understanding that consumers don't necessarily need to get a repeat annual notice if, number one, their financial institution isn't sharing it subject to an exception, meaning that the purposes their financial institution is sharing data for are things like fraud prevention and to process their transactions.
Can you quickly talk about when the last time it was, when the annual policy model form that the FTC posted was revisited or reformed?
I was back when I was at the Federal Trade Commission, which is about 15 years ago.
So completely outdated, so I think that explains the reason why.
Representative Kim, the waiting time has expired.
Okay, thank you.